Today, on episode 32 of the Fit Stoic podcast, you get what you pay for. We're going to explore a useful way of thinking about the life that you want for yourself and the goals that you want to achieve. And I'm going to share a question that you can use to trigger excellence in the moment. All right, welcome to the show. I'm Corey Samuelson. So I have a bit of a challenge today in that I have less time than I usually would to record an episode. So I am under a bit of a time constraint, and I'm just going to get right into this and we'll see how this turns out. It's going to be interesting. This is chapter 25 of the Gymchiridion. The title is You Get What You Pay For. Begin quote. You get what you pay for. If you don't pay the price, don't expect the result. Even in paying that price, there's no guarantee of outcome. In conditioning the body, people will go to great lengths to create the results they desire, and they may well succeed. It comes at a cost. A champion bodybuilder, with all their muscle mass, will never be a champion marathon runner with their lighter build, and vice versa. At least, not if they choose to continue training as they do. Even with all the appropriate choices along the way, genetics, environment, and other factors outside the bounds of self-control influence the outcome. Now, you look to someone with the physical conditioning you would prefer to have for yourself. Did you make the same choices? Have you put in the same effort? Placed yourself in the same environment? Also, what of your genetics, your height, the set of your femur within your hip socket, your ability to digest lactose? We are not all dealt the same cards in life. Each unique circumstance requires independent, well-reasoned thinking. Just don't make the mistake of saying, I could have done what they've done if I'd wanted to. You didn't want to. Else you'd have made different choices and be living a different life. If you're truly serious, get to work. The excellence you would live is available in this moment. It will not necessarily yield the outcome you prefer. This will take effort over the long term and is not simply a matter of choice, but the price remains to be paid regardless. End quote. This is a fairly easily understood chapter, and there's a common saying out there in the world. I don't know who started it or where it came from, but basically, there's no free lunch. Everything costs something. The common theme here is that whatever it is that we would like to experience, there's going to be a cost to be paid. As I was developing Stoic strength as a method and a bit of a philosophy in itself, I was looking very carefully at the terms and the words that I was using and the concepts that I thought were the most important to get across. As a recap, the way I define Stoic strength is operating with virtuous self-control in the moment of choice. Now, when I use that term virtuous self-control, sometimes that can be a little confusing, or at least not be that clear to people who don't follow Stoic philosophy or think about ethics and morality and whatnot. So another definition that I use for Stoic strength is operating with excellence in the moment of choice. Now, this again has to do with virtue. The definition of virtue can be thought of as excellence. We all have a concept of things that are unsatisfactory or poor quality and something that is excellent. So from virtuous self-control to excellence, a little bit easier to understand. An interesting little knock-on effect of changing that definition, just that little bit from virtuous self-control to excellence, I realized that operate with excellence, if you take the first letters, that turns into the word owe, as in a debt that must be paid. And I realized that that actually still made a lot of sense. So I looked up the definition of the word owe, and it is an obligation to be paid in return for something received. And then I thought, well, that's interesting, because another saying that people will just throw out without really thinking about what they're saying is, you owe it to yourself. You owe it to yourself to go and check out that concert because it's fantastic, for example, and you're really going to appreciate it. In that scenario, someone is suggesting to their friend that they schedule the time, pay for the ticket, make the trip, and go and see that concert. That's what they owe to themselves. Now, the interesting thing about that is that they have to pay all of that up front in order to have the experience of the concert. You know, there's effort involved here. And all of those things must be paid in advance. And that translates to anything that we want to experience in life. In the area of health and fitness, the health that we want to experience requires effort. It requires making choices that are consistent with that health. If we want to increase our cardiovascular endurance, if we want to run in a 5K, for example, that will require, if we're not already in condition to do that, it'll require training. It'll require conditioning of the body. So we must set a schedule of training. We must schedule the workouts. We must get up. We must, put the effort into the run. We must gradually increase. If we have not ever run a 5K before, we must start with what's in our ability. And this may be over the course of 2, 3, 4 months, depending on our conditioning before we start the training. The effort that we put in, all of it, maybe getting the right shoes, maybe buying a membership so that we can train indoors if it happens to be winter at the time and the 5K is going to take place in the spring, but right now there's ice and snow, and maybe we're a little bit concerned about twisting an ankle or something if we haven't been very active. All of these choices and all of these, if you think of them as tasks or steps forward, they must happen. We must do them before we have that conditioning to run a 5K. And if you're already in condition, well, you've already paid the price. You've already put in that time. So you're just a little bit further ahead of the debt schedule. So think of that when you are thinking about what it is that you want to experience in your life, or the kind of person that you want to be. Whatever that baseline is that you have in your own life right now, and then what you consider to be a more excellent standard for yourself, that gap here, there's a price to be paid to move from point A to point B. And that has to be paid in advance. It doesn't just happen. The other side of this coin, other than just thinking about what you have to do to move forward, is what price will you pay if you don't? If you don't go for what you want, if you are not willing to, let's say, improve your own health. If I am currently enjoying being lazy, eating poorly almost every single day, just because I like the flavor and I've kind of let my diet go, then the scenario here, the very likely scenario, is that I will experience weight gain and a lessening of the vibrancy of my health. I'll probably have less energy down the road. Now, I'm enjoying if I can use the word enjoying here, I am experiencing, maybe more accurate, I'm experiencing not having to be disciplined. I am just going with, hey, what tastes good? Or I think I'll just lay on the couch today and just eat Cheetos and whatever other flavorful and pleasant food I feel like eating at the time. Now, there are benefits because I just relax. I don't put in the effort. I just kind of feel the pleasure of all that. But there is a price to be paid. And paradoxically, the price here is down the road. So I either pay up front with the discipline and the effort and the making the more excellent choice, but sometimes because of that, the more difficult choice to make. And then I pay all of that to get all of those benefits. I pay that price up front. On the other side, I can just relax and kind of enjoy and feel pleasant and lazy and just going along. And I can, in the moment, imagine that I am avoiding paying the price or paying any price. I'm basically just living the life, as they say. I'm just, yeah, this is pretty good. The thing is, though, that price is somewhere in that equation. It's either something that I will choose to pay in the moment, or I will be forced to pay just by the nature of reality later. That's where that popular saying, discipline weighs ounces, whereas regret weighs tons. Now, I actually think that is making discipline sound easy. And I don't think that's accurate. To be disciplined takes effort. It can start to weigh ounces if you put in that effort in the beginning. But if you are lacking discipline at the moment, it depends how big of a bite of discipline you are trying to take for yourself up front. Going all in on discipline when that has not been your strategy may be a little bit more of a weighty subject than just ounces. But once you've trained yourself, and if you start with small steps, small doable steps, then it can be ounces. And then when you've had enough practice and enough training, and others see you in action, and they see what they consider to be a highly disciplined life, to you, that will have become such an ingrained habit that it won't feel like it's highly disciplined. You'll just be being yourself. You'll just be going about your life, grabbing the apple, hardly even seeing the donut. Using that example again. So what can you do with all of this thinking about the price that you have to pay? So one of the things is that you have to actually think very deeply and with quite a bit of effort, what is it that I want in my life? And what am I willing to pay through my own thinking, through my own effort, through my own choices? What am I willing to pay to get it? Because there's always going to be a price. You either pay it up front or you pay it on the back end. And then maybe on that back end, the choices that you would like to have open to you won't be. There will still be choices, but some choices like jumping off a diving board, do not offer themselves. Gravity at that point takes over. And the choice to not accelerate toward the water, that isn't an option anymore. Gravity just does what it does. And sometimes that isn't as pleasant. Maybe the water is colder than you thought. The question I was referring to at the beginning, I call it the O question. And in this case, I mean the OWE, operate with excellence question. And it goes like this: how can I operate with excellence now? That's it. Very simple. Whatever the circumstance you happen to be in that moment, you can become aware of your experience, your current experience, and realize it's not what you would prefer. And then you can say, how can I operate with excellence now? Now, this does two things for you. First, you are asking yourself, how? How can I operate with excellence? So the question itself presupposes that you can operate with excellence right now. Operating with excellence is always a choice. This question helps remind you that it is. Now remember, just to be clear, you can always choose to be excellent, and you can always make the choice to act with excellence. But remember that the results of your choices are not up to you. Acting with excellence, operating with excellence, making that excellent choice in the moment is the very best that you can do and leads to the very best results that you can possibly make, especially if you are practiced in this, so that you are making consistently excellent choices. The second thing the question does is from the realm of influential languaging and how to structure hypnotic suggestion and those types of fields, is that there is an embedded command in it. In this case, it's operate with excellence now. If you get into the habit of using this question, it will become a trigger to operate with excellence, so that you will train yourself, you will train your mind to focus on operating with excellence in the moment, right now. You can hear that when you ask that question, how can I operate with excellence now? That can become your trigger to actually operate with excellence. So that over time, by asking that question often enough, consistently, in the moment, you can see how that conscious question will start to become a less than or a non-conscious question, so that it just runs inside as a habit, as a way of thinking, so that you are taking responsibility for yourself to operate with excellence in that moment. Thanks for spending time with me today. If you like what you heard, please do share it with someone that you believe might like it too. This is Corey. Whatever your circumstance, operate with excellence.